Well, we look forward to it, Jared. The Tigers' roll continues unabated to the finals, and their fullback star, Alex Rance, is our special guest.
So disappointing for us to drop that. You know, there's too many times this year we've just had a chance right in front of us to just grab it, and once again tonight we failed to do so.
It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion that last quarter.
Polish, I think stats, I think they had 3 blokes not get double figures, we had 10, so...
Been the Caper for 20 years now, player and coach, and I can't remember a night like it. It was a bit of a perfect storm this evening.
Yes, they all missed golden opportunities to cement their spot in the 8, but amazingly, there's still a mathematical possibility to play finals in 2014. Hello and welcome to On the Couch. Let's join the heavyweights, Jason Dunstall, and I mean that in a nice way, Jason. And of course, Mike Shearn, you're looking very svelte tonight, Michael.
Thank you, Jared. Thanks for noticing. I reckon Roosie would swap places with any of those blokes.
Yeah, I think so.
What did you notice on the weekend?
You know what? We are so possession-oriented, the way we look at our game. But don't ever forget that a good tackle is as good as any possession out there. They save goals, they create goals, they change momentum. And we saw some absolute crackers. This from Jed Adcock.
One of the goals
was a beauty.
of the year.
Stopped him cold. That one from Jeremy McGovern, running him down. Look at a couple of bombers here, the desperation of these tackles and how they weren't holding the ball decision straight away given. But it's that last-ditch effort that can make such a difference to a game.
No Poppy there?
Well, have a look at the chase here from Chewy.
That's a good
Brilliant.
one.
Poppy's gone down media street since you built him up. He's now a goal-kicking genius.
And even big blokes can do it too. Big Drew Peat, he just sheepdogged him, didn't he?
How does Bobby get away with that? That's incorrect disposal.
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah.
Mike, I haven't seen you so down for a long time. What's troubling you?
Well, guess, Jared, one of the magical qualities of this game is its capacity to renew hope on a weekly basis. That ended yesterday for Melbourne supporters. I was at the MCG yesterday. The Melbourne supporters left the place in a state of absolute despair. And that sense of hopelessness, it never, I mean, you're disappointed and it's a bad loss. But this time, I think the Melbourne people are saying, where in the hell are we going?
I got a couple of texts yesterday from Melbourne supporters in disbelief. I won't say what they said, but they were in total disbelief. And Melbourne today have officially asked for a concession pick. Timing questionable. One, yes.
Do you think they should get a couple?
They didn't ask for the first round, did they?
No, they probably could have, Mike. But your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not sure about the timing. I mean, we know the needs there. But it's just, look, I'm not sure that you should be giving these out. I think you have to qualify for these things. Now, they're in a poor state, but emotion drives it at the moment. The debate will be doing, if the AFL Commission met today, they would have to say, this club needs one. But well, that's not the solution to the problem.
It's discretionary, though, and how bad do they have to go before they get one? Because they've been down for a long time.
They have, but it's not all about the manpower. We've talked before about the number of early picks that they've had.
OK.
6 weeks ago, we were talking about Paul Roos as being Coach of the Year. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that they had that really exciting victory against the Bombers, and we thought that the corner had been turned.
Well, you couldn't have seen a kick of yesterday's performance. It was the worst 3 years of Roosie's football life. He said that before.
What did you like about the weekend?
Well, I'm going to be the reverse to Mike. I saw an absolute gun make his return, and it's breathed life into the Fremantle Football Club's premiership chances. He's the missing link. It's not Pav. It's this bloke with the fluorescent boots, Michael Walters. I think we all had forgotten what a star he is. He kicked just a couple of goals on the weekend, but he had so many goal assists, Mike.
Yeah, look, he's exciting. Has he got enough time to get touchback?
Yeah.
He has he?
Got enough time. You obviously didn't see the game.
No, I saw that. But that's the first up run. That's a bit like the racing one. First up can be deceptive.
Well, they'll bring Ballantyne back in, just put him out to pasture for a little bit, and they're ready to go again.
You're back on, aren't you? You've got your
I was never off. I think we had this
beanie.
discussion a couple of weeks ago where you thought they couldn't win. Based on that, I think you'd have to say they're a chance again.
Well, if they finish top 4, of course they're a chance.
Well, if they finish off top 4, Michael, that's absolutely right. And at this stage, they do look as if that's going to be the case. They're not home yet. They've still got a couple of big ones, in particular Port Adelaide in round 23. Jason, where's the major interest for you right now?
I have been totally enthralled by this battle for 7th and 8th spot. I think it's been fantastic to still have games that have top 8 spots hinging on the result, and to see West Coast, even though they lost on the weekend, they lost a thriller against the Bombers, can still make it because they've got such good percentage if they win their last couple.
Tell me who's going to make it.
Well, I think West Coast might fall in.
I'm with you on that. We talked not so long ago about perhaps needing 13 wins.
11 and percentage.
And 11 with their healthy percentage. I think we'll get them home.
Mind you, it'd be great for the finals if Richmond were in. I think there's a crowd waiting to get on board there, Jared.
But surely Adelaide, given what may happen to the Tribunal over the next 24 hours, have got to be a genuine chance. They take on North Melbourne. If they win that, then it's all over. Let's take a look at what has happened from the Tribunal over the weekend. Are you surprised that Boomer Harvey has gone up, and are you surprised that this bloke gets 2 weeks?
Well, he was in an angry mood.
Yeah, he was.
For whatever reason. Maybe it was just the aggressive approach that the entire team's mindset was about, but it's cost him a couple of weeks again.
That eliminates the Brownlow discussion, doesn't it?
It does, indeed,
but
Michael.
it was obviously more serious than it looked. That didn't look to me. It looked like he cuffed him, but Lewis had to leave the field, didn't he?
Yeah, it took him a while to get up. He was a little distressed, and he's not one that just lays down and overdoes the contact.
He did give away a couple of goals also for retaliating. He's going to have to deal with it. Yep. He's now got the big reputation, and they're coming after him. Boomer Harvey's been dealing with it for a long time. And this is going to be interesting. I'm not sure if they thought it was worthy of going to the Tribunal, why they didn't actually just go with rough conduct and give him a week.
What can you find on that, Jared? Tell me what he's doing.
Well, you saw the left arm go, which you couldn't see, and now you see the forearm on the throat, which isn't a great look. But, again, I don't think Liam Picken was too distressed about it. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
So did Drew Petrie.
But I think they're gun-shy now because we've seen a couple that didn't go to the Tribunal that perhaps should have.
Yeah, agreed.
So I think they're going to err on the side of sending it up. But in that same game, Jared, I think North Melbourne were desperate to get Daniel Wells back in the action and just get match fitness into him. They would be horrified that his first game back, and you can see the slow motion bump here, there's contact to the chin of Sean Higgins. You can see it right there. Yeah. And he left the field and didn't come back. It was late in the game, but didn't come back, and he was obviously distressed. And then a little rib tickler.
Yeah. Combination Sato.
And the two of them together is, they've offered him a week.
I say my sympathies are with him on the bump. When I saw that, I didn't think he'd done anything wrong.
Right, what about when you've seen the slow motion replay?
So you say his shoulder hit him to the chin.
Did it
slide or not? It
doesn't matter if it slid. The rule says if you bump and there's any accidental head contact...
Is that a good rule?
Well, now that's a different discussion, Mike.
Should that be eliminated from the game? The Wells contact with Higgins. He didn't go after him. It was a genuine...
It's an era of concussion. It's an era of
Why didn't he tackle?
Issues.
Did the other bloke have the ball?
Why didn't he tackle?
Did Higgins have the ball?
You want your cake and eat it too on this. You want to deal with concussion.
Yeah, I do.
You don't want to have something knocked out of the game that gives you concussion.
But it's a
so he had the ball.
Game.
Why didn't he tackle?
I understand that, but you can tackle and drive them.
Anyway, I'm only telling you what my gut response was when I saw it in the first place. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it.
Can I tell you something that was even better?
Very big gut.
Very big response.
Something that I found incredibly amusing, Jared. You have to listen to these comments at the post-match presser from North Melbourne coach Brad Scott.
The message has been passed on to all clubs in no uncertain terms not to comment on the match review panel or incidents that may go before that. That being said, my position from where I was sitting is, again, our instruction to our players is really clear. Go as hard as you can at the footy. And it looked to me from my vantage point that he was going for the ball.
Well, it was one of the butts of the year.
That's not bad for a no comment on the incident.
I was listening to it over in the WA going to the airport, and I'm thinking, where's he going with all this? And then the butt came, and finally the opinion did come out. It's one of the games of the year coming up, Adelaide versus North Melbourne. With those suspensions possible for North Melbourne, it's a massive challenge and an opportunity for Adelaide. But on the weekend, it was one of the great games of the season for mine. It had it all. Hawthorn started well, but the Dockers came flying home.
Yeah, well, that's 2 weeks in a row that we've seen the old Dockers. I'm not sure they're back to 2013 form yet, though. Are you?
No, but I thought it was a really smart decision by Ross Lyon, whether it was intentional or not. I think the Hawks, given a couple of missing personnel and the match-up that they had at their hands, would have loved that tight, low-scoring contest. But in the end, it turned into a shootout almost. And I think Ross Lyon adopted the attitude, well, they're lacking a bit of firepower, and if we go all out, we might be able to kick a bigger score, and that's exactly what happened. Although the Hawks wasted a number of chances in the first
They did,
term.
and maybe Ross has come to the conclusion that he can't win big games and finals with 8 and 10 goals.
Well, it's nice to know you can win two different ways.
Yeah.
One by out-grinding the opposition, but perhaps two by outscoring them.
And that bloke we just saw kick a goal there, he can make the difference between them kicking 10 and 12 and 15, Stephen Hill.
He's having a pretty good year. In fact, he's improved on last year.
Yeah, he needed to.
And so do they. If they're going to knock off Hawthorn or Sydney or Geelong, whoever they play, if they get there, they're going to need some blokes to improve. And these are the ones for mine, Jason, that have stood out. I don't think people remember that Aaron Sandland's had a pretty ordinary year last year. He had a great grand final, but he's headed towards All-Australian nomination again. Taberner's interesting. He's been in and out. He was poor early. They pushed him forward, and again, he proved he's a good player. But the pace, to me, is where they've improved. Sutcliffe is now a genuinely good player. Fife's improved out of sight. Hill, I think, is better. Duffield has improved, but Lachie Neale down the bottom has given them something. I thought he did a really good job on Sam Mitchell on the weekend.
Yeah, Fife improved out of sight, has he?
Well, he has. He's gone from probably the top 20,
last year,
top 20 to maybe the best player in the game. That's a fair improvement.
Okay, right.
Where'd you have him in your top 50?
That's very threatening, Jared. I had him at number 5, actually.
Oh, OK. He hasn't improved that much in your opinion there. I'll retract that. But the pace, I think, is the major issue for them. And it stood out against the Hawks. Are you worried about the Hawks and their tiredness?
Oh, look, I thought it was smart that they sent Crowley to Smith because he's a really important player for Hawthorn. And I think Brad Hill lowered his colours. He spent a fair portion of the game on his brother Steve, and Stephen turned it around. So, look, I thought they looked a little tired in the second half, and that happens.
I reckon it was a good win, Jared. I wasn't quite as optimistic as you. I thought the Hawks, you mentioned Smith and Hill. Birchall didn't provide the run that he normally has.
That's because Crozier was on him.
OK, but I mean, he's been great for the previous parts of the year.
The Hawks were well beaten in the midfield. I thought the Dockers' midfield was terrific. Lewis aside, who played a tremendous game. And look, I think Langford tries hard and he's improving, but they didn't have a lot of help in the middle of the ground. And Mundy and Fife and Barlow and the rest of them ran a mark.
Yep.
Is David Hale fighting for his spot in the side right now?
Has to be. Absolutely has to. Well, we saw him sent back to the VFL at one stage, and I'm sure that the Hawks would love Jonathan Segler to continue to put pressure on David Hale, because if he doesn't find his best form, it's going to be difficult to fit him in that side.
We were surprised. I think I can't speak for you. I certainly was surprised Segler went out.
Yeah, I thought
he had a good stretch of form.
He did.
Played one ordinary game and he got sent back.
Played that one ordinary game, I think, when Hale played his really good game in the VFL, maybe kicked a bag of 5 or 6, and that probably was the reason why the change was made, but he hasn't found his best form and he needs to.
Now, Ellis Rance is going to join us, Mike, but you're a special guest of the Adelaide Football Club over the weekend. You put the moz on them, well done.
I went my record's been good until Saturday. I went over and when you're at the ground, as we all know, you've got the panorama, you can see the lot of it. I watched Alex Rance and the big Texan, and I reckon Alex is normally prepared. He just plays them on their merits, but he was clearly determined to get into this bloke's head. And it worked. I mean, he beat him, but obviously it was a different tactic to the tactics I normally expect from Alex Rance. So I'll be interested to ask him about that.
Did you think that they had it won, the Crows, when they burst out of the blocks in the last?
No doubt about that. They had all the momentum. I think there's two things there. They had the momentum in the home crowd, and Richmond's record in tight games hadn't been great. So I was surprised that the Tigers got back and won. You've
still got some concerns over Patrick Dangerfield.
Lots of concerns. We said 3 months ago, Jared, he can't continue to play like a battering ram every week. He's lost his zip, Patrick Dangerfield.
Well, I only saw bits and pieces of this game. I was flicking between a couple of games, but it's funny, every time I saw him, I thought he's labouring a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a high attrition game that he plays, and he still gets to the footy because he's such a smart player, but he's not getting clear like he used to. And I don't know what you do if you're in the finals race and he's almost your best player, probably your best player. You've probably got to play him, but gee, the signs of the last 6 weeks,
they can't rest him.
The signs of the last 6 weeks are that the edge is off him.
My understanding is that the AFL have had a discussion with the Adelaide Football Club and have told them that the Sloan decision was an incorrect decision. Mike, it's not public at the moment, but I think it was offered to them. Let's take a look at the Sloan incident as it unfolded. It was a pretty important goal, and no one challenged it at the time. All the players accepted that it was going to be a goal. Now, whether or not it hit the post is debatable, but I don't think anyone would say it's conclusive evidence either way.
Well, the ball was back in the centre.
that's interesting. You said they get a whole range of angles. We've also been told that it doesn't have to be challenged because they review every goal while it's going back to the middle of the ground. So they've obviously, the umpires upstairs have done that, but I didn't see conclusive footage.
Isn't the understanding that if the goal umpire makes a call, there has to be clear evidence that he's got it wrong?
Yep.
Well, and I think that's why the AFL have accepted that they got the wrong decision, and the clear evidence wasn't
less than happy.
He was, and he was entitled to. The Cats have done it again. They've got out of jail. The question is, are they using up all their lives when they can least afford it? They may need a few in the final few weeks, but their record at 20 and under points wins is quite phenomenal. When you compare it to Carlton, you can just see why one side is where they're at and the other isn't.
You know what? I get the sense that Geelong has been so good for so long. They don't get the very best out of themselves until they're challenged by either a great side or they get themselves in a situation that requires something.
At Hawthorn?
I think you go through periods where your belief that you're going to win gets you through, but you don't always play your best footy.
But this was with our Bartel and Johnson, so they didn't have a couple of those.
Yeah, but Carlton have got 5 blokes out. I mean, I reckon Carlton can consider themselves really unlucky not to have beaten Geelong twice this year.
Yeah. And they should have beaten Freo over
They're running it too fine, the Cats. As good as they are, you just can't, all the coaches will say, here's the contentious one, isn't it? This is the free kick to Christensen.
And they've again, the umpiring panel
incorrect.
And
this came from the non-controlling umpire.
Yeah.
And again, if you're going to pay a free kick from further afield, you need to be 100% sure.
Well, Hayden Kennedy said that they got it wrong. Yeah. What's your view of it?
I thought that was a free kick for slapping the arm. If it's pushing the back, I can't see a hand.
Slapping the arm.
But I thought he hit the arm.
He barely brushed his shoulder.
No, can't you have incidental contact in a marking contest?
Not if you go like that, Mike.
He didn't go like that.
Again.
A good opportunity.
I felt that over here like.
That's high impact, intentional, and you're in trouble, Healy.
I'd love to hear what Alex Rance thinks if he's going to get pinged every time he brushes his shoulder like that.
Why would you ask a full back that, Jason? That's their modus operandi. The big X factor, though, for Geelong is a kid called Mark Blitzevs. He's the steeple-chaser. He's not going to the Olympics because his improvement, and we've spoken about this, is extraordinary. He's the player that may have been able to hold down a spot. Now he's a player that may become a match winner.
Look, he's good. He's athletic. We know that. He can play at both ends, and he could play across the centre, couldn't he?
And he's also back doing a bit of a second ruckman's role, whereas earlier on in the year they were playing Dawson, they were playing McIntosh, and they were playing Blitzarves. This allows them to have an extra runner and only play one of the other ruckmen.
That's a recruiting coup.
It is.
Kid.
Yep. Yeah, they've had a few of those.
Yeah, they have. But this one coming from his background,
including Christensen, who was.
You hit me again, Jared. You want a mouth guard.
What about some of the mistakes from the senior players? They've had 12, 13 years at the top. I've never seen a gun like Kelly make a mistake.
But that shows you how daring they are. They don't think anything's beyond them.
That's probably the cause of the problem of why they're so far down.
Well, have a look at this kick from Corey Enright.
Yeah.
I mean, on his own goal line, a bomb in the corridor, and got punished. Yeah. But you know, they're trailing by a point. There's 5 or 6 minutes left. They're prepared to take risks, which was in direct contrast to what we saw from the Blues. Now we know the Cats are great under pressure. The Blues weren't cognizant of what the situation required. Did you see what they did when they had possession late in the game? Now this is extraordinary stuff. There's a minute 17 left on the clock. They need a goal to tie it up. So they get out. This is okay. That first possession's okay. You've got to go. You have to go. Sam Docherty's looking. At the very worst, he's got to wave some players to where he wants to kick the ball and then get it long. So kills time waiting, then runs across. He's running backwards there. Goes over to the other side, and look what happens. They get held up again.
Yeah.
The clock's ticking. Look at Mick Molly. You can understand why he's frustrated. He's going, well, we can't score here.
Isn't the runner out there telling them how much time's left?
Surely the players are smart enough to know you've got to take some sort of risk. You've got to be aggressive. And then look at the kick that came out.
Yeah.
I mean, that just shot any chance that they had. You know, in the foot, they had no chance.
They are a better team than the bottom 6 team. And if they stay there for the rest of this year, their draw next year is going to be very, very favourable.
What about the Pies?
West Coast this year?
We did.
We might be right.
They still might make the 8.
Maybe.
The Pies, Mike, we've been discussing the glass half full or half empty. Well, right now for this year, it's cracked and it's in the dustbin. And they are a genuine chance to get knocked off by the GWS next week if they don't produce their best.
The injuries are a legitimate alibi, aren't they?
And to all their good players too.
Yeah.
And losing Pendlebury before the game started. And then it's Cloak
Pendlebury and Beams, the last two, and Cloak,
and Reid. I mean, the key players.
Not sure would have meant they would have got the win, though, because despite the fact that Pendlebury was out, you concede that, when they had their players up and about, the Brisbane Lions were charging, and they were charging as if they were going to be winners. Nathan Buckley inevitably had to face the music, and this is what he had to say after the match.
Some guys have been great role players for a long time, have been asked to be movers and shakers, and that hasn't come to fruition. A lot of young blokes have been asked to play senior roles or very important roles in the side. They're not yet up to it. They're still going to get there. And some of our most senior players and our A-graders have had to turn themselves inside out just to keep everything together. And
so clearly they've been found out with a lack of depth. It's going to happen to all clubs as the competition evens out. We're going to see 2 or 3 injuries have an enormous domino effect.
That's true, but they've been disappointing for 8 weeks, and I reckon they've camouflaged it. That's my view. I don't think their form's been... They've had one or 2
wins out of the last 8, I think.
Yeah, so it's not just this. I mean, this is sort of the end of it. This has just exposed it for all to see because their good players have fallen over. But their form wasn't good.
Well, it was okay. But, I mean, you've been in a different school of thought all year, haven't you, Jerry? Because you thought this is where they were at and that they're actually building.
Well, it seems to me this is the plan. I mean, you can't knock all those premiership players out, retire some that have still got a few in you and send one up to GWS. If you're thinking that you're going to win a flag this year, you're not going to. They lose 2 or 3 injuries, somebody retires.
Are you entitled to run 10th, though?
Well, I think if you get a bad spell of injuries, based on the fact that you're looking at, finishing 6th to 8th, injuries can make you drop 2 or 3
places. Of
course
they can, but they've all got them.
They have, and I think at this stage Collingwood have had a bad run at the wrong time. But I think 16, 17, 18, that's maybe 15 when you're going to have your harshest assessment of where they're at. But
what about the job that Justin Leppich is doing with the Lions?
It's the complete opposite.
And they're playing some courageous footy. I love the way they're taking the game on, and they've got guys with genuine leg speed. Look, a little bit raw, but Lewis Taylor gets involved a couple of times. I love the way they're taking it on through the corridor, run, carry, just a bit of bravado, a bit of daring about it.
What's it the previous week? They beat 100 points 7 days earlier.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
They've shown me on a number of occasions.
We like the way they play.
Well, we love the way they play. Yeah. Is he going to get it, Mike, or is it
the rising star
going to somewhere else?
Well, look, he's got to be in the mix. I mean, if you judge them on blokes who play all the games and are productive most weeks, he's right in the mix, isn't he?
Yeah, he'll be up against a number who've played all, and of course Bonampelli. Here's some of the great turnarounds of all time, Mike. It's 105 points for the Brisbane Lions. Doesn't even rate a mention. Jason,
were you there then, Jason?
I was.
Yeah.
I was there in the second one, I've got to say.
The disappointing thing about being on that list is you had to cop a hiding to get on.
75, yeah.
Quite a phenomenal turnaround. And you asked the question, Mike, how has it happened? Well, what's what happens when you've got human beings out there?
True.
We're not robots, and it's going to turn into some of the most extraordinary turnarounds of all time. They uncovered a young kid called Freeman. Jason, what's their potential for next year?
Well, there's a few of them in the key position posts. I mean, Close has shown a lot of potential as well, and McStay has shown that he can take a mark at times. So all of a sudden, where I thought they actually lacked a bit of key position depth, maybe there's a lot more talent there than some of us first thought.
Freeman's lived the dream, hasn't he? First time at the MCG and he kicks 4.
His second game, was it?
Second game. First time at the MCG. McStay and Close again, impressive.
They look good. They do.
And you'd expect that Melbourne would be showing these sorts of signs, Mike, given they've had all these first-round draft picks. You're commissioned to give us a bit of a rundown of what you saw.
I want to remind you about round 4 last year. Melbourne played GWS at the MCG.
Yep.
Melbourne kicked 12 goals in the last quarter and run 1 running away. They play a half-baked GWS yesterday and get humiliated. I mean, that's as bad as performances I've seen from Melbourne, ever.
Well, we've been talking about the low scores they're kicking. When you have a look at some of the skills here, I mean, there's loose players everywhere and kicking it to the opposition. We're not just having a go at Dean Kent there. There's errors from everyone.
Yeah,
the lack of awareness or a lack of support.
Yep. I mean, Chris Dawes was in a couple of... Chris Dawes is probably the highest paid player in the footy club. Now, I feel sorry for Dawes having to play forward in this team.
You wouldn't want to be a forward.
No, you would not. But I mean, just a couple of the skills that were so poorly executed. You know, it was staggering. Gerald, I was sitting with the life members of the Melbourne Football Club yesterday, including Barassi, Dixon, McMahon, David Neitz was there. We'll just have a look at this. We'll have a look at these first with their goals, their scoring performances.
Well, you can have a look at just how bad their average scoring is, and we say 69 because that's when they brought in the deliberate out and the full rule. So it's regarded as the modern era from a statistics perspective. Maybe it should be upgraded a little bit, but that is exactly where Melbourne are at right now. Under 10 goals, it's a poor average.
Well, there's nothing, no glimmer of hope at the moment. But these blokes, I was sitting amongst people who had won as many as 6 premierships in their career. They won't see this side win 6 games this year.
So what do they do now?
Well, the thing they can't, I think they've got to, the rebuild has got to go back and pare it back, and they've just got to genuinely rebuild. I'm not sure about getting blokes in from other clubs now.
Well, before you have your full discussion, let's go back a couple of weeks when we had a look at Melbourne's list. This is what we had to say.
I think that anyone other than that group is available for consideration.
Well, what I would just say, because I was charged with coming up with finding players that have currency that would actually get something, because you have to give something to get something. But please, if you're a player, don't get upset. I'm not saying you should be traded, you should be let go. I'm just saying these are players on their list that would have currency, that would provoke some sort of discussion at the trade table.
Are you prepared to say now, Mike, about Jack Watts, Jack Grimes? Because they have to, I think, regenerate. I was pretty strong on moving Jack out because I think Jack needs a break somewhere.
Both parties. I think it serves the purposes of both parties for Jack Watts and Melbourne to part company. But in a short historical context, it's 3 years ago that Melbourne went to Geelong, Jason. Consider this, round 18, they are 1 win out of the 8. They go to Geelong.
7 and 8 record.
7 wins, 8 losses and a draw 3 years ago. They're going to Geelong. Cameron Swab's been told he's gone as the CEO. They play Geelong and get beat by 180 points. Gary Lyon steps in, saves Cameron Swab. Dean Bailey gets chopped. They've played 70 games since that day. They've won 11.
11?
11
so they are genuinely back in rebuild phase where they were prior to Jim Stein's taking off. So Roosie is regarded as a trader.
Yes.
What does he do to get them back to a level where he can leave in 2 years' time and say, job done?
He's the trader and he's the most powerful voice in the footy club. Someone, Peter Jackson probably, and Glenn Bartlett have to say, you can't trade these draft picks.
Well, it all depends what you're trading them for.
Not for players from elsewhere.
The most important thing for the Melbourne Football Club is to flood it with young talent.
Correct.
Agreed?
Yep.
Right. But they're going to get a couple of very high picks. From a philosophical perspective, and we saw what they did with pick 2 last year, where they traded that for Dom Tyson and pick 9, and a little bit of backhand stuff, but don't worry about that. So would you trade 2, for instance, as an example, philosophically, would you trade 2 top 5 picks for 4 top 20 picks to get 4 good young players in instead of 2?
If you could do it, I would consider it.
Well, that's all I'm saying by you can't declare picks untradeable.
Frawley, we think's gone. James Frawley,
he's playing like he's gone.
So they get 2 top 5 picks. My view would be just make sure you pick the right kids and take those. But if you come back to me and sort of say we can get 4 top 20 picks by using those, then I'm prepared to entertain that.
The only problem is history tells us they haven't picked the right kids over the journey, have they?
Well, maybe they... No, you can't get them all wrong. Maybe they haven't been developed properly.
Well, combination of.
Biggest downer from the weekend, though, was one individual, Jonathan Patton. It was another footballing tragedy, and it was, I think, just a reminder of how tenuous a grip you have on your career. We hope he gets back, and we hope he gets back strongly. But it's a major setback for him and for the GWS, who had an historic win, their first ever at the MCG.
Remember when we all remember when we were 21 and that happened? So it's like your life sort of almost finished, isn't it?
And it was a very innocuous incident as well. That's tragic. And look, really bad news for him. We hope that he gets back to.
Hey, they were good,
strength.
Jared. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact that they have a lot of good players missing, and they still won.
They've got some fantastic players missing, and they lost some on the day, Mike. They only had 72 interchanges, which reminds me of Dwayne Russell tonight on 3AW said his strong mail is the substitutes gone, and Mark Evans may go back on what he was saying and to bring the interchange back to maybe 100 even lower. So
4 on the bench?
4 on the bench, no substitute. A lot of these things were discussed at Gillon McLaughlin's curry night, and it seems a few of them are going to come through.
Yeah, I don't care if the sub goes.
No, it wouldn't bother me.
No.
I think if you're bringing the rotations down to 80, it becomes a little bit superfluous. We're going to take a break on the couch. So Alex Rance, the fullback of the Tigers, he joins us straight after this. Good steal by Rance.
There's not too many in the competition that beat him in a one-on-one contest.
Conditions probably didn't suit the big forwards today, as we saw, but Alex has look, his ability to compete one-on-one, and he rarely gets beaten. If he doesn't, he halves the contest, gets it out of bounds. I thought he's had an outstanding year, and I thought he probably won the battle today.
Fair to say the Tigers have had an up and down year, but not so our guest, Alex Rance, has put together another fine season. He joins us on the couch. Welcome, Alex. What a great story the Tigers have become.
Yeah, it's good to be back on the winners list for sure, and 7 in a row is probably a bit unexpected, but it's nice.
When did you start talking about finals? Because surely right now it must be on the agenda.
I think the F word's banned at Richmond. We're not allowed to speak of it, but just winning's good. Winning's great, and I think it's contagious as well. So if we can stay on the roll, and who knows what can happen.
Normally when you get to 3 and 10 and the season's disappearing down the gurgle, you tend to have, for want of a better expression, crisis meetings or open brainstorming sessions where everyone just throws up ideas. There must have been a bit of soul searching done.
Probably not so much amongst the coaches, but amongst the players. You've got to start to hold yourselves accountable, and it can't come from the top, it's got to come from within. So we had a few good chats, and to hold each other accountable, it's been well documented about Ivan saying that we need to lift our standards and things like that. Not that our standards were poor to start, but they probably just weren't to the expectation that we need to be successful.
Jason, you two seem like you're old friends. Any history?
I've spoken before.
What, officially or socially?
Where are you going with this, Mike?
Alex, did this bloke come a courting you a few years ago?
Oh, we've crossed paths a couple of times, yeah.
Inviting you to Hawthorn?
Yes, yeah. It was, and Dimmer, by his own admission, tried to trade me for a box of stubbies at that point in my career. I didn't know what type of player I was, so...
Hey, we were a good judge of horseflesh back then.
Yeah, obviously.
We had a great time to
I want to take you back to the Adelaide Oval Saturday night. I've watched you play lots of football. You tend to play blokes on their merits and not aggravate them all that much. You went after Taylor Walker, didn't you?
Yeah, after the week he had the week before, I needed to change something up. It's not something that I usually go to. I don't tend to like to poke the bear too much, but yeah, I caught my fair share of attention as well. But I know the type of player that he likes to hit and then lead up, so I needed to take that away.
Did he get irritated?
Oh, we had a few nice words to each other, but yeah, and I thought I loved the contest. It was fine. I would never complain about anything he did to me, and I'm sure he wouldn't complain about anything I did to him.
How much preparation do you do for your specific opponent, your opponent that you're about to face in the coming week? Do you sit there and analyse the strengths and weaknesses, or you'd know most of it anyway, wouldn't you?
I've come to a point in my career now where I know what works for me, what I feel comfortable doing. Some players are comfortable taking lead lanes, some like to have the contact and in behind. So I know now what works for me. For players like Nick Riewoldt, who's just a machine and can chew up the turf, I might take a few liberties and take the lead space a bit more, but it's very minute changes to my game. Yeah. They're not drastic changes.
Alex, when you fell off your bike early in the year and had to tell the coach that you had a broken bone in your foot with a cycling accident, how did he react to that?
Yeah, it was like telling your mum you've broken her favourite vase. It was it wasn't the best experience. I felt gutted, and especially when the team wasn't winning as well, I felt a little bit responsible for that too. That I couldn't be out there helping the boys. But in saying that, there's always a silver lining. I did learn a lot being off and seeing it from the stands, and saw some deficiencies.
Do you think we judged you harshly? You were out, Delidio was out, Marek was out. Do you think that we, the commentariat, judged you harshly at that time?
Judged us personally, that were out?
No, it's the team. No, that we didn't make enough allowances for the fact that 3 key players were missing.
I don't think so. You can't... It's a team game. There's more than 3 players on the field at one time, so everyone's got to be accountable for their actions. And at that time, we had deficiencies in our game, which since then we've fixed up.
What credibility did you give to Jack Riewoldt's explanation, now infamous explanation, if you like, an innocent comment, but one that created enormous headlines about trying to play Hawthorn-esque style of footy and getting it wrong?
It's interesting personal opinions. Everyone has their own personal opinions. I don't think it was meant in a malicious way, but no. I don't think it was the smartest comment at the same time.
But was it right?
it wasn't right for him to voice it in a public forum, I don't think. But yeah, it was definitely not a knock on our game plan, because he came back the next day and had a chat with Dimmer, and they certainly believe that they're on great terms now.
But you are playing much faster footy since you've turned this around and you've gone on this great winning run.
I'm not sure it's come off the back of our offensive efforts, though, and playing Hawthorn-esque, free-flowing football. I think it's come off the back of our hard defensive work. Jacka Smith, who's our defensive coach, every player now has to get in with him, and Trent Cotchin's led the way as our skipper. He's been fantastic with his defensive intent, and we've seen the scores that can be resulted from turnovers this year have been, the main source.
Some of your teammates you see every week, we only see them once every few weeks. Ben Griffiths is a young player. I think he's only 22 as we speak. He teases at times. We see what he's capable of. Is he going to continue to develop? How far can he go?
It's funny you use that word tease. Choco calls him that all the time. He's like that beautiful girl at the bar. He's got all the tricks. He's a beautiful kick, has great hands. But it's amazing how just a little bit of confidence, what that can do. And you see the GWS game, he was flying at marks, taking them. And we had a sit-down meeting with a lot of the players, and we said, do you believe as much as we believe? We've seen what you can do, and he's really shown in the past couple of weeks that he can play, and he'll be a good player for us.
And from a balance perspective, do he and Ty Vickery fit into the same lineup?
I'd have to ask Dimmer. I'm not really sure. I think they can play together. Griffo he's very nimble and agile for his, and I guess so is Ty for their size. So I don't see any reason why not.
There's been general improvement, obviously, and that's why you're playing so well. But the one bloke who stood out to me is Brandon Ellis. I thought he started the season a bit slowly, but I reckon his last 2 months have been outstanding.
He came to the club with a massive tank. He could run all day, but he didn't know how to use it. He didn't know where to channel that. And as the winger and the rollback wing, he's really got the mindset now to get back and help and use that tank to blow his players up, and he's reaping the rewards. Early days he probably didn't understand the rewards that could come from that. You just thought maybe kicking the goals is the way to go, but he's averaging high 20s if not 30 possessions a game now from getting back and helping. He's chopped me out a couple of times on the weekend, and I've patted him on the back a couple of times.
Now, it'll be a lot of years before you have to worry about what you're doing post-football, but have you got any plans?
I'd like to travel.
Why do you say raise your standards, I reckon?
Raise my standards in terms of...
I was just trawling through the Richmond website this afternoon and came and saw that body and this bloke polishing windscreens.
Have a look at the rig. It's like looking in a mirror, Mike, isn't it?
Yeah, I made about $60 that day. It's not a bad business, and all cash too.
Did they recognise you?
There was a couple of camera phones that came out, but I was hoping that the hat would disguise him. I worked with a nice gentleman that day too. He was a great fella. Earned a few bucks too.
We're going to wrap it up. That's an amazing career opportunity, Mike. It's like you were running yourself a few years ago, but you're on a great streak.
Yep.
And I want to remind you of what historically has been fantastic for the Richmond Tigers. 67, you won 8 in a row. You won a premiership. 72, you fell just one short. 9 in a row and 11 in a row turns into premierships if you look for historical data. It's exciting times with the Tigers. Let's hope it continues. Good luck tonight.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Alex Rance, our special guest. Plenty more to come on the couch straight after this.
Hocking's been sensational today. Flick over the top. Chappie with the left boot is a beauty.
Here's Winderlook again. Great late close from McKenzie. Under all sorts of pressure. Dempsey charging through. Get out the scarves, Bomber fans. You're still coming.
2, 1. They're in the 8. What an extraordinary win.
It was a great win. It was a great match. Big opportunity lost by the West Coast Eagles, but a fantastic comeback by the Bombers. Jason, you were there. How'd they do it?
It was amazing stuff. And I spoke to Bomber earlier tonight and said, did you see it coming at half-time? He said, nope. I don't think anyone did because the Eagles have been so good. But he should take credit for a couple of terrific positional changes. He moved Heppel to half-back. Heppel hadn't been poor in the first half, but he ran riot. Mind you, he still played like a midfielder, but just starting in the half-back position. Ran absolutely riot. And then he moved Winderlick to that deep forward post. exposed, and that worked a treat.
So should the tag have gone back with Heppel?
Yeah, and I think Adam Simpson admitted that afterwards. But this guy here,
this is Bomber's greatest challenge.
Well, but what getting him to play
talking him out of retirement.
So they started with Goddard as that permanent forward type, and he just didn't have any speed off the mark. He was completely ineffective. They moved Windlick there, and all of a sudden you can see the lateral movement and the leading space that he's got. And he started to become a really dangerous player, and he's also a clever player. He's got good goal sense, and he was one of the reasons they started to have much better structure when they went forward.
They have to go back to him. He's 28, he's quick, and he's a goal kicker.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't want to lose him, would you?
I think Hurdy's got to get on the phone and say, listen, you are still playing. Tell him. Don't ask him, tell him.
It was a terrific win by them, but can I just say, and we said before, the Eagles are still in the mix, they've unearthed one of the finds of the season in young Jeremy McGovern. This is the bloke we know was sent away to get himself fit, but he's playing down back after starting forward. Have a look at a couple of the kicks. He pulls the trigger on these corridor kicks. This is what you want from a guy that's playing down back with these sort of foot skills, because he doesn't kick them high. They're 50-metre darts.
Yeah.
This guy's got a lot of talent.
Who's the better team, West Coast or Essendon?
We saw two completely different halves.
Yeah.
I've been teased by West Coast over the last 2.5 weeks. I'm not sure they deserve to play finals, though.
Signings today coming through. Gaff lies set for 4 years, which is a big commitment, given that there was a couple of clubs chasing him, and Jack Darling also for a couple.
What about Buddy? The show just rolls on, doesn't it?
And we love seeing some big bags. I mean, we need this, and it was great that Buddy lit it up. They must have felt powerless, some of these St Kilda defenders. When you have a look at the way he monsters them, or he runs around them, you can feel for them. There's a great one coming up. I mean, that's this one here. Just look at the way he goes around Delaney, and then Debster tackles him, but it doesn't matter. He just stands up and kicks the goal.
6'6", and you can do that. But let's not forget Tippett in this equation, though. Tippett kicked 3. They had 17 marks between them. Big dry grounds in finals time.
There aren't that many defences that are capable of quelling them.
Let's just hope Alex Rance has left the building and he didn't see that. He got him in a couple
the disturbing thing for Sydney is the fact that Josh Kennedy left the field with apparent hamstring tightness, soreness.
Tightness, I think. I'm not sure it's a 3-weeker, though, is it? Is it just management more than that?
Hopefully, but if he did tell them he had a hamstring, there's an issue of some sort, isn't there?
Yeah, well, you hope it's just a little bit of soreness, and they said, well, a little bit of tightness, and they're not going to take any risks, but could also impact the Brownlow as well, because everything outstanding here, isn't it?
The big mover in the Brownlow over the weekend?
G.
Ablett might get on. The good money is there. Saw a couple of incidents over the weekend, which I think the umpiring fraternity need to look at. They made a brave move with the sliding rule and the front-on contact rule. And this one just is friendly fire more than anything else. But Bird comes in. I'm not sure why Tippett goes to ground there. I mean, it's just so dangerous. And yet one of his teammates is under serious threat. And this one, that's frontal contact. No decision, no free kick was paid against the Cats, Stokes, and yet that's exactly why it's brought in. I mean, he is so lucky, Daisy Thomas, that he's not going in for reconstruction.
Gee, I find that difficult to read, don't you? Do you think that
the issue is, do you dive on the ball, or should they go to the nth degree, the nuclear weapon, and say, if you can't pick the ball up unless you're standing on your feet.
See, the other one, the more serious one to me, is still the ducking of the head, leading with the head. And Neil Saxey came out and had something to say about it. Now, when the head goes down like that, we've seen so much evidence about how dangerous it is.
And I'm glad he got penalised. I'm glad he got penalised for that, and I'm glad, even though there was high contact here, because Walters ducked his head, they didn't pay it. And that's good umpiring.
But these blokes, I suppose it's instinctive, isn't it? I mean, they would still read stories.
Great follow-up by Neil Saxey in the Herald Sun today. It was great to see him weigh in.
I tell players, enjoy yourself, but don't use your head as a battering ram, and don't put your head out there so it does get hit, so you can cannon into someone else head on. Well, there's no greater authority on this than Neil, sadly.
And on the back of Tom Lynch getting a crack, so lucky.
And it was far more serious than what we 7 days ago. We didn't realise how serious the Lynch situation was.
What you take out of the North Dogs game, Jason? Because I found that one really disappointing for the Dogs.
So did I.
And the Kangaroos really could have put them away a little bit more efficiently.
They could have. I worry about the Dogs at times because Scott Thompson ran riot in the first quarter. And Barry Hall actually asked Stephen King, an assistant coach at quarter time, what they were going to do. And this was the response.
And Scotty Thompson was a dominant player for North Melbourne. Will you look to do something with him?
Yeah, look, we just got it with the message to the forwards, just try and keep them engaged so it's one-on-one. So that's the challenge.
Keep them engaged and make it one-on-one. So the second quarter starts, Mike.
And Thompson's free.
The second, the third, the fourth centre square bounces are set up like this. Scott Thompson is free because they're at the top end there. You can see they're only playing 5 forwards, the Bulldogs, and Scott Thompson is the free man. How does that happen when you've just heard one of the coaches say, engage them and make it one-on-one?
Yeah, and you don't want him. He's a smart player, Thompson, isn't he?
It boggled the mind.
Do the Bulldogs get a charm run? They're 7 and 13. Having finished last year in really promising fashion.
I thought that was one of their disappointing efforts of the year. I think they've started slowly, had a couple of ups, and I reckon they needed to show they were closer to sides in the 8 on that occasion.
Yeah. You agree with that?
Yeah. I think that's it. They've had some good performances, but very inconsistent.
And we love the fact that Bontempelli and him particularly and the other kids are emerging. But they need to do better than this.
I agree.
The kid that we do like, he's got red hair and he plays for the Kangaroos. He's been a major, I think, excitement machine for them. What do you think of his goal kicking, though, Jason? Does he know what he's doing?
Well, everyone has their own individual technique. That's an interesting one. He does tend to arc out a little bit out onto the right foot before he kicks it. I mean, this is a classic case because two very similar kicks. Well, then he ran to the right before he kicked it.
What's wrong with that, though?
That's perfect. Yeah. Well, let's see if you can do it again, Jared.
OK. I like this. This case takes me back to the under-10 days when you line it up with your nose.
No matter how you line it up, you do whatever works for you. But consistency is what you're looking for.
That's no good. But what he can do, he knows where the footy's going, his hands are good.
I will say this, he's proven himself to be a much better option at this stage than Majak Daw. And he's the one they've got to persist with as the second tall option because he presents well. I'll tell you what he does do well for a big bloke. Keeps his feet, doesn't go to ground, and that's an important attribute to have.
He's exciting. Port Adelaide slump a few weeks ago, starting to emerge, and in tough circumstances. I'm not sure if you saw the game, Mike, but it was horrendous conditions up on the Gold Coast. They were challenged early. They were really average, but they dug deep and fought for a really good win.
But, Jace, there's no option in these conditions. You just have to attack the footy.
You've got to be hard.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of the strategies and tactics go out of the game. You play some old-fashioned footy. So you try to keep your feet, you make the most of the opportunities, but you keep it simple. And they did that.
And Ollie Wines just continues to make good decisions. Chad Wingard, there were a couple of signs, but if they are to genuinely challenge, he is one that's got to take his game back to where it was.
He owes them, doesn't he?
But he hasn't hit those levels all year, has he?
No.
It's difficult to see that he's just all of a sudden going to flick a switch.
Probably, but Port Adelaide are going to give themselves a chance. They take on Fremantle in round 23, and if they can pinch that top 4 position, all of a sudden, as you said, Mike, they can win the flag. We're going to take a break here on the couch. It's Mike's Mad Minutes straight after this.
What about the melee, mate?
The melee rule came in when I ran through the banner before a game.
That's right, yeah.
And unfortunately, the banner was facing the Essendon huddle, and the team went through the banner and took off around to the left. And I was on the right-hand side of the team, and my turning circle isn't quite as good as what they did. So I had the whole Essendon Football Club trying to belt into me.
So you went for them?
It presented itself.
1 against 20, mate. The odds aren't all that good, are they?
Yeah, I was probably a little bit overconfident. Lee Matthews once sat me down and said, sometimes, Monkey, you have too much faith in your own ability and you disrespect the opposition.
Is that right? And you think that might have been one of those occasions?
That might have been one of those occasions.
Well, if the interview is anything to go by, though, that little clip, Mike, it's going to be an absolute beauty. He's a character.
He is one of the most friendly characters you'll ever run.
And he's a darn good player, and he's a ruck coach down at Hawthorn.
Yep, he is.
And they love him down there.
Righto, Mike, what have you got for us tonight?
Well, I'm mad in a little way, yeah. Mad that you whacked me before, but
incidental
I'm mad
contact,
that the umpires still don't know how far 15 metres is, Jason.
Right.
Now, there was a game you covered the other day. How far is this kick?
About 10 or 12 metres?
No, about 8 or 9, isn't it? Now, that's not difficult to arbitrate, that, is it?
Right. It shouldn't be. That wasn't the distance.
Isn't that a not...
This one certainly wasn't the distance.
No. It should be. Like, it should be... It's minimum 15.
Yeah.
I'm sort of... Let's err on to us. If it's 16, say, play on you blokes, but not give it to them at such short distances.
Having said that, there were a few in the Hawthorn Freo game where they just waved on that looked 15.
Yeah, but we've been down that track before.
We have. We're erring on the side of 20 metres.
I'm quizzical.
Quizzical.
Quizzical half-minute.
Yeah, quizzical half-minute. Mitch Clark is a free agent. Mitch Clark has provided some of the most exciting football I've seen from a Melbourne player in recent years.
Yeah.
Now,
Mitch Clark is no longer on the Melbourne list.
No longer on the Melbourne list. He's been removed from that. He's 27 at the end of this season, and he's a very, very good player.
But is he ready to come back into the mix?
He's had depression issues, as we understand it, but they're correctable, are they not? I mean,
well, they are, but we don't know whether he's in that frame of mind that he wants to put himself back into the scenario.
Well, we would like to think that at 27 he hasn't got this problem forever.
I think it's a fair point, Mike.
Yeah.
My understanding is he's moved back to Perth.
Yep.
We know that Fremantle had a genuine crack at him before he changed his mind and went to Melbourne. So come draft time...
Well, he would have to nominate for the draft.
Yes.
And then he's fair game to anyone that would want to draft him. So it's not a fait accompli that he would go to one of the West Australian clubs.
No, it's not. I mean, but he's an excellent talent.
But that's based on the assumption he's ready to do that as well.
Yeah, but I mean, he will have been out of the game for 12 months, and he would be getting the best of specialist attention.
We take risks on blokes who've never seen a ball coming from America. If Mitch Clark gave any indication
that he was ready to play,
or he was prepared to be just bankrolled for 12 months just to see, well, you'd invest in him, wouldn't you?
Oh, no question. I could never understand why Melbourne did list him. It may have been part of the arrangement with him about how they settled the financial element of it, but
may have been something to do actually dealing with his depression.
Okay, but we would hope and expect in this time that his problem will be corrected.
Well, most importantly, we just hope that he's doing very well.
Yeah.
Hawthorn and Geelong coming up, Mike. It's been a fascinating combat between the two.
Yeah, well, I suppose you'll tip Geelong because you always
they win all the time, unless it's a rare final.
Looking forward to it. This is a very exciting time of year now, isn't it?
Yeah, speaking to Chris Scott today, he suggested that perhaps, given that they've locked off that top 3 position, wouldn't be surprised if Stevie Johnson doesn't play, Bartel doesn't play, and maybe Tom Hawkins also might miss, given that he's got a bit of stiffness in the back. But at the present time, who cares? We've got 12 sides still alive for the final 8, and it's been a fantastic finish for the season.
You owe him something.
Yeah, and I think we should...
Incidental contact, Mike. Just wear it because it didn't matter. It wasn't a free kick. Thanks for your company. We'll see you next week.